my question for you, just around the sexual spark, which is a chapter in the book as well, is for women. And for a lot of women that I've spoken to, a big qualifier is safety. Like they want to feel safe. They want to feel like they can just completely melt, right? Completely surrender
and let go.
Yeah. How do we get close to that? How do we get better, let's say, at surrendering?
Okay. So it's funny because like when I was reading my book, there was like, I was getting to the parts on trauma. And I remember like, I was like recording my audiobook and I was just getting to the parts on trauma. And I definitely started to like get a little teary eyed because I was like, God, I've come so far in my personal journey. And like part of the reason why I wrote this book was for other women like me who want hope that it's possible that they can be embodied in their sexuality, because a lot of women have been traumatized. And it's like, we're only just now starting to really recognize how big of a problem this is. And a lot of men have too, by the way. Like I have multiple clients in my practice who've discovered that uncovered that they had sexual trauma as a child. And so it's not like it's just women, but it's definitely a problem in society. So 1 in 4 women are abused as children, 1 in 3 are assaulted, and 1 in 5 are raped. This is CDC data. And that means that about 60 to 80% of these women are going to have sexual dysfunction, and they're going to find it pretty hard to actually fully let go with a partner because their nervous system has been wired to protect them by either freezing or by tensing, getting so much tension in their genitals that they have pain. So sexual pain is a big issue, or they won't get aroused because their body doesn't feel safe. And so if you have a history of sexual trauma, you should know that you're not broken. Like you don't need to be fixed. Like your body literally did this for you to save you and protect you. You just, it is a process of having to reformat these memories around sexuality from unsafe to safe. And in my personal journey, it was an accident that happened because I had been with a partner, and we had experimented with MDMA. And this was before I was a doctor. It was before I had a license. So I think I can speak to this. I was in my late 20s, and I went from having like, and by the way, I'm not saying that every woman out there who has trauma should take MDMA and have sex by any means. That's absolutely not that's a 100% disclaimer. But I am saying that like I accidentally healed trauma with a medicine that's being studied for PTSD, specifically because it's been found to like actually cure PTSD in 67% of people who use it. But what was interesting in my personal case was I didn't know I had PTSD because I didn't have the symptoms. And so I actually like looked at them up and I was like, wait, do I have PTSD or do I just have trauma?
Do I have medical student syndrome or do I have PTSD?
I certainly feel like I have PTSD from medical school, but funny thing is that I found that my response to my sexual trauma in college was dissociation. So when I would have sex, I would dissociate. I would not really be in my body. I would be kind of like watching everything happen, but not really in it. So it definitely took me a first waking up and realization of, oh my God, I'm not like actually here with my partner at all. I'm like in a totally different world. And I think a lot of women, when they're having sex, they're going into their heads and they're going into and a lot of men too, by the way, will go into like, they'll go into another space. And really when you're having sex with yourself, with a partner, it's kind of like you're masturbating with them. Like you're not actually with them if you're just in your mind. So a big, big, big piece is you have to learn to create emotional safety before physical intimacy. And that means that like opening up about traumatic experiences you've had with a trusted partner who you know and trust. Not turning to alcohol as your path for intimacy, because it will create the conditions for, there's all sorts of things that can go wrong with alcohol and sex. It's the most used aphrodisiac, but it certainly is a problem in a lot of cases. But like really actually going and getting real help for trauma is something that a lot of women who with sexual trauma don't do. A lot of them have just never gotten therapy. They've never gone to EMDR. They've never tried somatic experiencing. They've never done any of the basics.
Or just like you didn't realize that you had. You didn't recognize
it. I mean,
yeah.
The first step is like, do I have trauma? Do I have like a buried sexual trauma that's actually running malware in the background of my mind,
right,
keeping me from actually being in my body? And do I consider myself like fully, completely fixed and healed? No, I sometimes, when I'm under a lot of stress, sometimes I'll sit there and I'll just like go into my own world, and I'll just kind of like, I won't even hear people around me talking. I'll just be like in my own head, like having all sorts of like thoughts and conversations. And it's like, it's a mild form of dissociation, but like, it's a protective mechanism for, how we deal with things that are challenging, right? Like our body wants us to freeze a little bit, pause, and take a step outside of what's going on and be like, okay, what am I doing here? Now, the key is like understanding the nervous system kind of behaves in two ways when it becomes dysregulated. So balanced nervous systems are going to not overreact, and they're not going to freeze and dissociate. They're going to just respond coherently to problems. When you have social injury, whether it's a major big T trauma or a little T trauma, what you will find is that typically people who get really stressed, or people who have overreactions, or people who have relationship problems and have a lot of conflict in their life, it's because they get triggered by things in their past that their nervous system is responding to as though it's still present. And that memory has not been integrated from the past from the present to the past, from the implicit memory to the explicit memory, from the present memory to the long-term memory. And so if you see somebody who's like triggered and overreactive, it's a pretty good chance that they've got some unresolved stuff in their past that they need to address. And then also when there are people out there that like really freeze up, go inward, isolate themselves, become shut down, avoidant, that's also another form of the nervous system responding to painful experiences. And it's like, it's trying to protect itself. So it's either attack, which is like fight, right? Or it's freeze, or it's, and sometimes it's tend to befriend, like sometimes like, there's the ventral vagal, which is like the way that we really want to be adapting is like really turning towards people and saying, hey, I need some support. I need some connection. I need some help. And when you build a strong community of friends and family around you, when shit hits the fan, you got people. Like one of my friends was suicidal earlier this year. And I came over to her house and I was like, hey, she's like, I'm going to go visit my parents. I'm like, hey, before you go, I want to see you. I want to sit and talk to you. I want to go through this with you and talk through it. And, like I've had to pull a few suicidal people off of a figurative ledge in this last year, because the world has been really hard for a lot of people. And unfortunately, like, I don't think anything's going to get easier in the next year. So the most important thing you can do right now for regulating your nervous system is to A, get proper therapy, find a good therapist, B, surround yourself with people you love and trust, and C, really get in tune with your history. Like do a little life review. I would recommend, astrologically speaking, to wait till like the mid to end of January to start doing resolutions. It's just not the time right now, because believe it or not, there's a bunch of reasons. But I'm planning on doing a bit of a life review. And like, if you haven't done a lot of personal development work, go to Hoffman. Like go do a lot of these. If you haven't really dealt with your like relationship with your parents, it's still probably affecting you in this life. So doing a lot of the relational work and doing a lot of the trauma therapy and really learning how to become in tune with your body is a process that happens over time. And it's not going to happen overnight. So the first thing you need to figure out is like, what do I have any dysfunction? Do I have pain during penetration? Do I get wet and aroused before I have sex? Do I have desire to have sex at all? Do I have hyperactive desire to have sex? Is it out of proportion of normal sex drive? And do I feel connected to my partner emotionally? And if not, then these are areas of opportunity for you to work on your health, work on your sexual health, work on your, and there are great experts out there that can help you. But ideally go find someone who you can get some referrals from, recommendations from. If you are LGBT, make sure that the person that you go see is LGBT friendly. And make sure that like, you know, like you look at this as an opportunity for growth and not as like, I have a problem, I'm broken. Like 100% not going to help you if you think that you're not, you can't be fixed. Everybody can heal. I mean, it's totally possible, but you have to believe it's possible. And that's one of the biggest things I tell all my clients is like, if you don't think you can get better, you're not going to get better. But if you think you can, then you will.